Lil Jeff's name still echoes through the streets of Chicago like a distant voice from the past, one that never got to say everything it needed to. His story is more than just another tale of a promising young rapper taken too soon. It's a raw, tragic glimpse into the heart of a city caught in the middle of music, violence, and survival. Before the tragedy hit, before the streets mourned, before fans lit up comment sections with RIP messages, there was a life full of energy, talent, and dreams. And in his final moments, Lil Jeff's journey painted a picture that's as heartbreaking as it is unforgettable. This one hits different because it's real. It's about a kid who never got to grow old, whose last days were haunted by the same city that raised him. Lil Jeff, born Jeffrey Morgan, was a product of Chicago's turbulent South Side, a place where the line between fame and death is frighteningly thin. He grew up in the heart of the drill scene, surrounded by names that would soon dominate the genre: Lil Durk, Chief Keef, Fredo Santana, Rondo No. 9, and L.A. Capone. But unlike some of the others, Jeff never made it far enough to truly leave his mark on a national scale. Still, to those who knew the streets, who paid attention to the early days of drill, Jeff was a name that meant something. His music had raw energy, his personality had presence, and his loyalty to his people ran deep. But none of that could protect him from what was coming. Even as a teenager, Jeff was knee-deep in a world of rivalries, block politics, and survival instincts. He was associated with 300 and OTF, often seen in the same circles as Durk and L.A. Capone. But while some rappers used their music to step away from the violence, Jeff's reality was harder to escape. Every verse he spit, every video he appeared in, was tethered to a street story that could have real-life consequences. When you come from where Jeff came from, fame doesn't shield you, it paints a target on your back. Jeff's music wasn't polished by industry standards, but it didn't need to be. It was gritty, authentic, and drenched in the pain and pride of his upbringing. Tracks like No Lacking and appearances in early drill videos showed a young man who wasn't trying to be anything other than himself. But behind the bravado was a kid with trauma etched into his soul. He'd lost friends, some to the streets, others to the system. And even though he smiled in photos and laughed with his crew, the weight of his environment never left him. In the days leading up to his death, Jeff wasn't just rapping, he was alive like there was no tomorrow. Because deep down, he might have known how short life could be in Chicago. There were whispers in the streets. Tensions were rising between rival cliques. A shooting here, a diss track there. In that world, retaliation was never far behind. Jeff's name had been mentioned in too many rumors, his face recognized by too many enemies. And no matter how fast he moved, danger always seemed just a step behind. The night before the tragedy, Jeff was seen hanging with friends, same as always. Smiling, joking, trying to live like a normal teenager. But in a city like Chicago, normal doesn't last long. Reports say he was walking down the 7,000 block of South Merrill Avenue on the east side when a car pulled up. Shots rang out. It wasn't just a warning. It wasn't a scuffle. It was execution style. A targeted hit. And when Jeff hit the pavement, the city lost another one of its young voices. He was just 16 years old. 16. That number feels cruel. Because at 16, you're supposed to be thinking about girls, graduation, summer breaks, not funerals. Not your own funeral. But Jeff's life was fast-forwarded from the start. He didn't get the luxury of childhood. He had to grow up quick, adapt quicker, and learn how to read danger in a stranger's stare. Even still, nothing could have prepared him for that moment. His death sent ripples through the drill community. Lil Durk posted a tribute. Fellow artists paid their respects. But there was a chilling silence that followed too. Because in Chicago, mourning is often followed by more bloodshed. Retaliation. Silence. Repeat. And while fans grieved online, the streets did what they always did. They moved on, waiting for the next name, the next victim, the next tragedy. But Jeff wasn't just another victim. To those who knew him, he was full of life. Funny. Loyal. Quick-witted. He had big dreams, bigger than the block, bigger than the city. He wanted to make it out not just for himself, but for everyone around him. And even though he didn't get that chance, his story still lingers, still matters, still hurts. The footage from that night is grainy, like a bad memory you can't shake. No music. No filters. Just chaos and sirens. A crowd gathered. Phones out. Eyes wide. And there, in the middle of it all, was Jeff, lifeless, still, gone. It's a moment that sticks with you not because of the violence, but because of the silence afterwards. The silence of a young life cut short. The silence of what could have been. People ask why stories like Jeff's matter. Why tell them? Why bring up the bread? But the truth is, we need to remember him not just for the music, not just for the tragedy, but for the life. Because every time a kid like Jeff dies, it's not just a personal loss, it's cultural, generational, systemic. These aren't isolated incidents. These are patterns. And unless we talk about them, expose them, feel them, we're doomed to repeat them. There were signs. There were warnings. But in that world, even when you see the storm coming, there's nowhere to hide. Jeff had enemies he never met, people who hated him because of who he was affiliated with. In Chicago, gang politics run deeper than most people can imagine. Your face, your crew, even your lyrics, they can all get you killed. Jeff lived in that pressure cooker. And when the heat finally got too high, there was no one to cool it down. His funeral was heartbreaking. Another ugly teen to rest. Another mother sobbing into a casket. Another group of young men wearing hoodies and pain on their faces. And yet, the cycle didn't stop. See you next week, another shooting. A month later, another name trending. It's a pattern so familiar it's numbing. But Jeff's story refuses to be forgotten. His legacy lives on, not because he was the biggest star, but because he was real. Authentic. Unapologetically himself. In a world that tried to silence him, he spoke. In a city that tried to bury his dreams, he dared to dream anyway. And that, more than anything, is what hits different. If you go back and listen to his verses now, knowing what you know, you hear them differently. The tone. The urgency. The pain. It's like he was speaking from a place that already knew the end was near. And maybe he did. Maybe all the bravado, all the street talk, all the flexing, it was his way of fighting back against the fear, the trauma, the reality that most of his peers weren't doing it past 18. There's a photo of Jeff, young, bright-eyed, standing in front of a microphone. It's haunting now, because it shows what could have been. He could have been the next breakout star. He could have been on tour. He could have been on billboards. But instead, he's another memory, another mural, another name on a list that's far too long. And as the years go by, the newer generation might not remember Jeff like those who were there in the early drill days. But his story still holds weight. It still speaks. It still matters. Because behind the statistics, behind the headlines, behind the music, there was a kid who just wanted to live. So when you think of Lil Jeff, don't just think of the tragedy. Think of life. Think of the laughter. Think of the dreams. Because in a city where so many voices are silenced too soon, remembering is the most powerful thing we can do. Jeff deserved more. And though he's gone, his spirit still lingers in the music, in the memories, and in the hearts of those who refuse to let his name fade away. Rest in peace, Lil Jeff. Your story may have ended too soon, but your impact lives on.